Well, because it looks like a very timely thing because as Director of PCASTERD, which is the Philippine Council for Advanced Science and Technology, Research and Development, and ASTI being the Advanced Science and Technology Institute, we thought it was very logical or very good that if I were there as an OIC, then when we planned together as a start, then we could have our plans jive and see how we could help each other out. During that time, like we said, we wanted to concentrate on information technology, and we did a lot of consultancy together with PCASTERD during that time, because PCASTERD was also doing its 5-year plan. And there was even a steering committee that we formed. We had members like Dr. Efren Abaya of the College of Engineering of UP. We also had Dr. Alfred Tong of Ateneo de Manila, and we had Dr. William Torres of the National Computer Center. So we did a lot of consultations, and together we came up with coming up with a plan for the next 5 years for ASTI. The mandate of ASTI was really to do research and development in information technology and computer technology, microelectronics, and biotechnology. But as I mentioned, as we were planning for where we could focus the role of ASTI, given its starting role and its very meager resources during that time, we thought of focusing on information technology. If I remember correctly, we were starting with only about 6 members, and then the budget was not very high yet because we were just starting. So we had very meager resources. We did not even have any really office during the time, and in fact, originally we were having a little space at PCASTERD, and then we moved over to the building in Tapi where they had a vacant room there. So it was really a big challenge, and how do we recruit people to man this very promising agency of DOST. How do we put all of this together, starting with a very small working group. We were able to come up with from 6 people to about, I think, a little over 30, and we had a lot of young, very able people come up with some of the, for example, the computers, the accessories, the software, and we even put a little library for. It was a very encouraging thing that I had at ASTI during that time. Very challenging because you're starting with an organization, and you know what the mandate is, and you try to see how you could perform that. Given that, and I was very encouraged with the enthusiasm that the working group, the staff, the young people, and those that have been, and some with some little experience. Very nice to be working with these people. Very encouraging.
I was a professor at the Electrical and Engineering Department of the University of the Philippines when my former professor and good friend, Dr. Roger Panglasigi, who was at the time the director of PCASTERD of DOST, invited me for dinner and explained to me that they were looking for a director for the Advanced Science and Technology Institute of DOST. And he explained to me that it would benefit the EEE department if I became the director of ASTI, because ASTI had a capital outlay of 5 million that could be used to purchase research equipment in electronics and engineering design. And the equipment can be shared with the EEE so that senior students of EEE can also use the equipment for their research projects. And I was convinced that that would be a very good opportunity for the EEE department to have modern and sophisticated equipment for R&D research in the field of electrical and electronics engineering. And so I agreed. And that became the start of a collaboration between the EEE and the Advanced Science and Technology Institute of DOST. Because when I assumed the directorship, there were only around 15 engineers and all new graduates working for ASTI. And so I recruited about another 15 senior students from EEE, and the 30 engineers worked together jointly and separately on the research projects on electronics, electrical, and communications engineering. When I was invited, I was only told that we were supposed to work on advanced science and technology projects. But after I read the mandate, it became clear to me that ASTI at the time was mandated to do advanced researches in three important fields: electrical, electronics and communications engineering, software engineering, and bioengineering. But with the meager cash outlay that we had and the few engineers we had, I decided that we could only work on two of the three. And that's the reason why we focused our efforts to do research projects in the field of electrical, electronics, and communications engineering and software engineering. But we were not able to do anything, nor even attempted to do anything in the field of bioengineering. Again, for two reasons: lack of manpower and lack of funds to bioengineering researches. Problems that I had to deal with. First was the lack of manpower. There were only 15 organic engineers, and we had to get another 15 senior students from the EEE department. But the 30 obviously were not enough, but we had to work with 30 at the time. At the same time, there was no equipment for advanced researches, and so with the capital outlay we got, we had to prioritize and buy equipment that we could use. And buying the equipment took almost a year. And so that delayed our research projects by at least a year. At the same time, the lack of experience of the engineers was the biggest hurdle. And so the few years that I stayed with ASTI, all that was done was to train these engineers so that they would be able to work on advanced researches. We realized that not only ASTI but the entire country was so far behind in research in the fields that we have to work on. And therefore what we did was to double time. So I convinced all the engineers that in order for us to fast track and to catch up, we had to work round the clock. And so there was an agreement that we would be open 24/7. And that's what we did for those 3 years. All engineers were supposed to work every day from Monday to Sunday, and including nighttime. And we all agreed, and I believe I forced them to agree, I might say, that all engineers should work round the clock. And to show them that it's doable, I showed them that I did that myself, and everybody had to do that. And they were also forced to work during holidays, including Valentine's Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. And the only leeway I gave them was if they would want to miss or if they would want to go on holidays, they would have to tell me 3 days in advance, and I would assess whether the progress of their projects would allow them to be absent for a few days. Otherwise, there would be no holidays, no vacation leave for them. And that's what we did. In order to be able to accomplish what we plan to achieve, and at the same time expedite the training that they had to go to. My fondest memories when I was director of ASTI were the fact that I practically abused the engineers we had at the time, and my attention was even called by 2 high officials of the DOST, but I explained to them that the projects to be done required 4 times the workforce, and so we had no choice but to do that. And I believe they benefited from it because, as I said, many of them were recruited by R&D companies, and until now many of them are still there with high positions, even R&D managers.
My interest then was in research and development in the area of electronics. I thought that if I joined ASTI, I would be able to implement a research and development agenda for that field. I believe that the primary role of ASTI while I was there was to conduct R&D in the field of electronics and software. I also believe that ASTI has the task of increasing the capability of the country to do R&D in those fields. I wanted ASTI to enable other institutions in the country to do R&D. That's why we partner with several universities and institutions so that their R&D capabilities will also be developed. ASTI was a very small agency at that time, and we felt that to make an impact in the country, the other institutions should be brought to a higher level in terms of research and development capabilities. Well, at the time, the first challenge was the turnover of people. There were, the people at ASTI were very highly qualified, and industry was trying to get many of them. That was the first challenge. The second challenge was a permanent place to stay for ASTI. Then the third that I remember was the environment that we had. At that time, there was attrition law that made it very hard for us to hire people, and it was a new agency. We also had problems of the government, some agencies of the government being unfamiliar with the nature of research and development. At that time, if you look at all the procurement and auditing rules of the government, they catered to the more common agencies, and the rules did not apply well to R&D institutions. During my time, we tried to involve many institutions to work with us, and we were able to solve some problems like the permanent place for ASTI to stay. We were able to request for this building, and the Department of Science and Technology and the other government agencies supported us. So ASTI now has this permanent place to stay. Although now I think it is too small for them. One of the memories that I had of ASTI was summertime, because during summer we have a lot of people assisting us in R&D from many institutions. ASTI is a very busy organization during the summertime, and budget hearings were also memorable, but I won't say why.